Excellencies, honorable members, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me first, on behalf of the people and government of Kenya, welcome delegates who do not come from Kenya. Please feel at home while you are in Kenya. You know the reasons why you have to feel at home, because this is home anyway. I'm deeply honored to have this opportunity to warmly welcome each and every one of you to this event where at last we bring into operation a critical flagship program of the high-level presidential initiative that Kenya launched 4 years ago at the UN Climate Summit in New York. At that summit, Kenya and Turkey had jointly led the discussion track on infrastructure, cities, and local action, and together with Brazil, developed and spearheaded the initiative on building resilience for the urban poor with technical support from the UN Habitat and our State Department for Housing and Urban Development is the designated focal point. And I want to thank the State Department for all the work they have done with us. And in fact, our design of the affordable housing program is informed to a great extent by the insights that we have acquired by associating with this program. Owing to the rapidly accelerating rates of urbanization globally, the population of poor people in our cities and urban areas has likewise grown. Consequently, over 1 billion people now live in informal settlements, and specifically in Kenya, we have 1,410 informal settlements around the country. Many people think when we talk about informal settlement, it's just Kibera and a few other places in Nairobi. That's not the case. And meaning that they lack the advantage of access to superior amenities and infrastructures that come with residing in cities and are therefore vulnerable to various shocks and stresses. In fact, with the governor of Nairobi, we were somewhere in Roysambu in Nairobi, and the paradox is that there are more children in informal settlements in Nairobi that do not go to school than in rural Kenya. It's a real paradox. Many people, when they think about cities, they think about Uhuru Highway and Kenyatta Avenue and Lavington and those parts of Nairobi. That is not the case. So this is reality. This is in addition to lacking both access and the capacity to utilize existing opportunities of self-advancement. The initiative to build resilience and enhance the adaptive capacity of the urban poor is a vital component that must be integrated into climate action and emergency response agenda. Due to their circumstances, the urban poor live and struggle for livelihoods in informal settlements, making them climate vulnerable and consistently sustainable to external shocks and disasters, as demonstrated in numerous disasters that happen in our informal settlements. By definition, the urban poor also lack the resources to invest in adaptations necessary for them to cope with the impacts of climate-related shocks and stresses. This vulnerability has far-reaching consequences on the lives and livelihoods of urban poor, and especially the youth and women and people living with disabilities in these informal settlements. It is for this reason that this program has been formulated as a timely initiative that enables states, especially in Africa, to implement effective interventions aimed at enhancing climate adaptation in the midst of explosive growth of urbanization and the increasing rate of climate-induced migration to urban poor. Whenever we are having this conversation, the conversation is not whether the world is urbanizing. In fact, the statement, the future is urban, is real. It is for us to decide what kind of urban we will have in the future. Whether it is one that is informal, that doesn't have amenities, that lacks water, that lacks sewer, that lacks all the amenities that are required for any dignified living in any part of the world, rural or urban, or whether we have a different scenario. And it is therefore the concepts around this program that is dedicated to championing coordinated action to reduce urban vulnerability to climate change and at the same time mitigate the urban crisis in general. Globally, Kenya reports to the UN Secretary General's Climate Action Team, while nationally the State Department of Housing and Urban Development is the focal point, as I have already indicated. I invite all stakeholders with an interest in building more sustainable and inclusive urban areas to seriously consider the aims and purposes of this program and to support its efforts to ease the burden of climate change on the segments of our population that is least able to respond to it. And I'm very happy that we have many governors in our midst, because they manage, or you manage, municipalities, you manage townships, and some of the time these are the hotspots that we are discussing in these concepts. Adequate financing remains a primary weakness, which leaves many countries unprepared to confront the impacts of climate change, whose incidence is disproportionate in comparison with our documented emissions contribution, as well as their equally disproportionate adverse effects on the urban poor. I appeal to these stakeholders, including our development partners, to extend robust support to the implementation of this program and its activities, which include readiness programs in diverse areas like water and sanitation resilience, energy resilience, livelihoods and economic systems of the vulnerable residents, urban regeneration, including the reclamation of fragile ecosystems, resettlement of communities, and resilient urban spatial plans, green urban spaces, and developing resilience governance frameworks. I thank the leadership of the United Cities and local governments of Africa for mobilizing support for this program throughout our continent and championing its coming into operation. With the clarity of the objectives of this initiative and the dedication of the strong partners that we have, as well as the goodwill and commitment of all our stakeholders, I am confident that this program will succeed in delivering on its mandate. I take this opportunity to wish you productive engagement, and I'm looking forward to a hybrid of ideas from different sectors and an open conversation, honest conversation on what interventions are we looking at. Critical infrastructure, critical services in cities, water, sanitation, electricity, roads, pathways, infrastructure, education infrastructure, health infrastructure. These are the critical services that are important, even in the context of climate change. We must be sensitive as to what climate change is doing to the provision and the ability of governments at all levels to make provisions for these services. And as I have said, we are having a very big conversation around finance and about resources and about investments. I remember having a conversation with the governor of Nairobi about garbage and how we need to monetize garbage, how we need to invest in collection, management, and making sure that garbage does not become a problem. In fact, we try and make it an opportunity. And I think so much is happening in that direction. And that will be extended to many of our large and medium cities in Kenya. So these are conversations that we want to work with you. And I want to thank the UN agencies for being our partners. And you have my commitment, that of the government of Kenya. And I can speak with a measure of authority on behalf of our counties that we are all partners in this. And you can count on our partnership, our support, our collaboration, and we will make sure that this goes forward. I take this opportunity finally to wish you productive engagements, robust deliberations, and successful resolutions in all items covered in the sessions that will proceed after this, and await concrete recommendations on this program for integration into the Nairobi Leaders' Declaration and Call to Action. Unfortunately, I would have really wanted to sit in and listen to some of the good ideas that will be part of this conversation. But unfortunately, I have to do some other business in the other side of the conference. But I have enough people who will make sure that we get the correct information and we do what we must as government at the national level with the support of government at the other levels. Thank you very much. My very best wishes.